All right, let's just jump right in. We've always thought of aging as this inevitable slide downhill. It just happens, and that's that. But what if we've been looking at it completely wrong? Seriously, what if the entire way we think about getting older is just off? That's what we're digging into today, a new way of thinking that could honestly change everything.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can even get into how to slow aging down, we've got to be on the same page about what it even is. And you might be surprised to hear that the way we usually define it, it might be missing the biggest piece of the puzzle.
You've probably heard this question kicked around, right? Is aging a disease? And it makes sense why we ask that. I mean, if it's a disease, that means we can cure it. But here's the thing. According to cellular biologist Dr. Manuel Serrano, that question, while popular, might actually be leading us down the wrong path. He thinks there's a much smarter, more accurate way to think about it.
So here's his big idea. Dr. Serrano says aging isn't a disease at all. Instead, he calls it a situation of risk that is acquired over time. Just let that sink in for a second. It's not the illness itself, it's the condition that makes all the other illnesses way more likely to happen. It's like aging isn't the main villain, it's the villain's number one accomplice.
And he has this fantastic analogy to make it super clear. Think about smoking. Is smoking a disease? No, of course not. It's something you do that creates a massive risk for diseases, like lung cancer. And the longer you smoke, the higher that risk climbs. Well, aging is pretty much the same deal. It's not a disease, but it is, without a doubt, the number one risk factor for almost everything we're afraid of. Cancer, heart issues, you name it. And here's the most important part. Just like you can stop smoking, this process of aging, it's something we can actually influence.
Right, so if we can change how we age, what's the point? Is everyone just trying to live forever, become immortal, never have a wrinkle? Let's get really clear on what the actual goal is here, because it's probably not what you think.
Yeah, Dr. Serrano really cuts through the noise on this one. He's not messing around. He says, quote, "We do not study aging to be immortal, nor to live longer, nor to have no wrinkles." It's not about vanity. It's not about living to be 500. The real goal is way more grounded and honestly a lot more useful for all of us.
What they're really targeting are those awful diseases that tend to show up as we get older. Things like kidney failure, cancer, pulmonary fibrosis, the stuff we really dread. The idea is if you can tackle the number one risk factor, the aging process itself, then maybe you can prevent or treat these diseases that we currently have no good answers for. It's all about improving our health span, basically the number of years we spend feeling good and healthy. Okay, so how does this all work? Like, what's actually happening deep inside our bodies that's increasing this risk? Well, we need to zoom in to the cellular level, because it turns out there's a villain in this story, a tiny, microscopic bad guy that's causing a lot of the trouble. These things are called senescent cells, and really, all they are is damaged cells. Now, when we're young, our body has this amazing internal cleanup crew that finds these damaged cells and just gets rid of them, no problem. But as we age, that cleanup crew gets a little slower, a little less efficient. So these damaged cells start to stick around and they pile up, causing all sorts of damage to the healthy cells nearby.
And this is where that amazing zombie metaphor comes in. Dr. Serrano says they become a kind of zombie. And it's just perfect, isn't it? Because they're not really dead, but they're not properly alive either. They just kind of hang around, not doing their job, and worse, they spew out all this toxic gunk that hurts the healthy cells around them. They're literally the walking dead inside our bodies.
So what's creating these cellular zombies in the first place? Well, it's a mix of things. A really big one is just having too many nutrients floating around from eating too much or too often. But it's also just biology. Our telomeres, which are like the little protective caps on our chromosomes, get shorter over time. And then you've got outside stuff, like toxins in the environment, or even just getting sick from a virus. All of these can create more of these zombie cells.
All right, I know, zombie cells sound pretty scary. A little grim, but this is the part where it gets really good. Because we are not just victims here. The science is incredibly empowering, and researchers have basically handed us a toolkit, a set of things we can actually do to fight back.
It really boils down to three main pillars, three big areas that have a huge impact. First, smart nutrition. Second, moderate exercise. And the third one, well, you might not see it coming, our social lives. Let's get into what each of those actually means. Okay, let's talk nutrition. One of the simplest and most powerful things you can do is just give your body a break. We're talking about a minimum of 14 hours between dinner and breakfast the next day. That fasting window gives your body's cleanup crew time to do its job without being constantly bombarded with new food to process. And it's not just about the timing, it's also about the amount. There was this big study in the US that found that people who simply cut their calorie intake by about 20% saw really significant health benefits. It's pretty amazing, right? Just eating a little bit less can make a huge difference. Next up, exercise. And I really want to stress the key word here, which is moderate. This isn't about becoming an ultramarathoner. In fact, that kind of extreme stuff can actually cause a lot of damage. No, we're talking about things like a good 1-hour walk or maybe a 30-minute jog. It's about being consistent, not about pushing yourself to the absolute limit. And now for that third pillar, the one I said might surprise you, your social life. Yeah, seriously. It's obviously harder to stick in a test tube and measure, but study after study shows the same thing. People with strong connections, friends, family, a partner, even a pet, they tend to be healthier and live longer. It makes sense when you think about it, right? Having people or a furry friend who depend on you gives you a reason to take care of yourself. So, let's pull all this together. We've got a new definition of aging as a risk factor. We know about the zombie cells causing trouble, and we have a practical toolkit to fight back. When you combine all that, it completely reframes what we should be aiming for when we talk about a long life.
And this quote really nails the new mission. People who live a long time are sick for a short time. Think about that. The goal isn't to live to be 100 and be sick for the last 20 years. No way. The goal is to compress that period of sickness, to be like those centenarians who are still sharp and active at 90 or 95 and then have a very short period of illness right at the very end. That's the dream, isn't it?
And really, that's what this all comes down to. This whole thing isn't some sci-fi quest for immortality. It's about flipping a classic phrase on its head. The goal isn't just to add more years to your life. The real goal, the one that actually matters, is to add more life to your years. It's a total shift in how we think about our future. It's not just about the number, it's about the quality of every single one of those years.